Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! This is my encounter with an entitled crazy woman that thinks the world should always bow to her wishes. A little background: I'm single, having never remarried after my wife passed away from a sudden and deadly illness. And since the pandemic hit, my grandmother, who's in her 90s, and my cousin and her mother have been living with me. Never had any problems with them, and they do help around the house as they can and even pitch in on the bills from time to time, which I love about them. My cousin is a special needs boy and has a compromised immune system, as well as my grandma, being old, does not have as strong an immune system as she used to. As such, when I do have to go out, I take the precaution of taking a shower when I come home and put on a fresh set of clothing, taking care to not expose them to the worn set before I wash them, necessary in my view with a pandemic going on. Normally, I would order in whatever we need, but at the time this happened I could not. Something to do with their system going buggy or something. With that, let's get on with the story. This happened a little earlier today and I'm still fuming over it. Yes, I did press charges. Earlier today, I decided to go shopping even though some members of my household are at higher risk for the pandemic going on. But we still needed food and a few things for a special diet one of them had to eat. Into the store, once I got there, I grabbed a cart and began to shop. I had been shopping for about 20 minutes when I heard someone snapping their fingers. I ignored it because I didn't work there and was wearing jeans and a black shirt with insane clown poses on it. No way anyone could mistake me for an employee, or at least so I thought. The next thing I knew was someone yelling in my ear, "Are you going to help me or not?" I jumped, exclaiming loudly, "What the hell?" When I got turned around, there was a Karen, short-haired and clothes one size too small for her, large and with a sour look on her face. She shouted again, "Help me now or I'm getting you fired." I told her just as loudly, "I don't work here. Now get lost and go bother an actual employee." She stepped back, mouth agape like she had never been shouted back at in her entire life, and wound up to slap me. I blocked her swing and said, "That's one." She tried to slap me again and I blocked it. "That's two. One more and I'll slap you back." She screamed, "I'm getting you fired," and she stomped off. I yelled, "Don't let the doorknob hit you on the way out." As she left, I saw her shoulders jerk as if she had gotten hit in the back and kept going. I continued with my shopping, albeit angrily. I was done with people at that moment and wanted to finish and get back home. An employee approached me and asked what was all the yelling about. So I told her everything I could tell. She was smirking when I told her what I said as a crazy woman stomped off. So we chatted as I shopped, and the employee's words were helping considerably to calm me down when we heard that nasty voice again. "That's him. The one who wouldn't help me and threatened me when I asked for his help. I want him fired right now." The manager looked confused. "Ma'am, he doesn't work here. I cannot fire customers." "Yes, he does," she yelled at him. "Fire him right now or I'm filing a complaint with the corporate." "You're certainly welcome to do that, ma'am, but he does not work here." She lost her crap then. Her face went purple and charged at me and managed to slap me this time. I normally am opposed to hitting women, but out of pure defensive instinct, I slapped her back, hard enough to spin her around and knock her down. By this time, store security had arrived and restrained me, thinking I was the one to instigate the incident. The crazy woman got up off the floor and started screaming assault and demanding the police be called. In the meantime, she tried several more times to get to me and slapped me again and wound up being restrained herself. During this, the employee had been speaking to the manager over her yelling and told him what had actually happened and had heard her demands 2 aisles away and came to investigate. Apparently, she had managed to come into the aisle in time to see her try to slap me a second time in my warning to her. When the police arrived, she went off on a profanity-laced rant demanding I be fired and arrested and that she was going to be able to live off the suit. She intended to file. The police walked me a few feet away while she ranted and raved and asked me what happened. So I told them, and that the footage from the security cameras would provide proof of my side of the incident. So while one listened to her side of the story, one went and checked the recordings. They came back, one took out his cuffs while the crazy woman looked smug and said some rude things. But she was shocked when the officer told her to turn around and to not resist. They had to literally drag her out of the store, kicking and screaming all the way, threatening to have their jobs, and screaming how she was a victim here and more. I cannot put here because of the language. I was asked a few minutes later by one of the officers if I would like to press charges, since from viewing the recordings, it was obvious I was defending myself and did not use excessive force. And of course I said yes. I also found out later she has harassed other shoppers before, but had never assaulted anyone before. So she's sitting in jail, having not been able to bail out, and her own family, a few, who have contacted me and profusely apologized for her actions, which I told them not to worry about. They are not being held to blame for her actions, and none of them are willing to pay her bail so she can get out and start her shenanigans again. I suspect there is more to it than that, but I do know she has been banned from the store now after that for life. This story needs a little background information before I get into it. First off, my mother has cerebral palsy in her legs. It doesn't affect anything else, just her legs. Because of this, she cannot walk without crutches. Secondly, she had rotator cuff surgery on both of her shoulders, which makes it extremely difficult to walk with the crutches. So she uses her wheelchair a lot more than she used to. Lastly, she has limited use of her legs. So she can drive, but she cannot walk. On to the story. This was about a year or so, but something reminded me of it today. It was a hot, humid summer day, and my mother and I needed to go pick something up from Walmart. She was driving and we were looking for a parking spot in the overly packed parking lot. Since she has her wheelchair, we were looking for a handicap spot. Finally, we found one after going up and down the aisles upon aisles of cars countless times. As we began to pull into the spot, this entitled middle-aged Karen decided to dive into the spot and then stand in it, so we couldn't go any farther into the spot. She adjusted her oversized purse onto her shoulder and got into her cross-armed "I would like to speak to your manager" stance, which matched her haircut. We were about a fourth of the way into the spot, so we couldn't just park there because we blocked traffic. It was the only handicapped spot in the lot, and it's ridiculously hard to get a wheelchair out of a normal spot because it's too tight. She began screaming at us about how her mother needed the spot, and we were lazy jerks who should just get a normal spot and walk like everyone else. This pissed my mother off, as she works her butt off every day to do the things that the majority of people can do. She works hard to raise a family and to help her legs from locking up. She also hates the fact that she can no longer walk as much. So that comment got her to snap. She yelled back at the lady about how she needs it because she's in a wheelchair and how she tries her damnedest to do everything she possibly can for her family. The lady had a look of shock cross her face as if she's never had someone yell back at her before. She took a step back in her disbelief, but quickly recovered as she yelled, "You can freaking walk!" My mom screamed back, "No, I really can't." My mother slowly pulled into the spot from the lady stepping back, and she freaked out at us, saying we tried to hit her. Finally, my mother caved and backed out of the spot to find a new one. She was almost in tears as she found a spot in the very back of the parking lot, but she couldn't get out because we were too tight to the cars alongside us. I angrily stormed toward this lady from the back of the parking lot, but in the midst of my anger I came up with the perfect plan. I became calm as I began to approach the lady, who then scoffed at me. I looked alongside her to her mother, who seemed about 50 or 60 and was walking perfectly fine. Her mother smiled at me and I smiled back before looking up at the lady, speaking in a very polite tone. I'm sorry about my mother. She just gets angered when entitled people steal her handicap spot that she desperately needs. I paused as I saw her face start to shift from cheerful for the apology to complete shock and disgust that I was mentioning this in front of her mother. I then added in my same tone, with a dash of annoyance, "Oh, and she's stuck in the car because I couldn't get the wheelchair to fit in between the cars." The woman's look lost its disgust. I went into complete shock as I began to walk away, and her mother began yelling at her for taking the spot of someone who clearly needed it, and for causing good people an awful amount of trouble. I know, not enough, but it's something. For a little context, I'm a construction worker with my own company truck. As far as from what I have seen in my area, most people with company trucks have this thing where the front two seats always stay very clean, aside from dirt that comes from working in my field of work. The back seats, however, are a different story. It's amazing how much trash gets thrown back there, whether it be water bottles, snack wrappers, food wrappers, and so on. My company has a contract with a local detailer that comes and washes and vacuums all the company trucks bi-weekly to keep the appearance up. We are just responsible for removing all the large trash so they don't have to do too much work. Usually, we just throw out everything in a dumpster at the shop before the detailer goes in and works his magic. Anyways, on to the story. So today I had just finished up a service call and was about to go on my lunch break. I had stopped at a local gas station near downtown Austin to pour gas right before I headed off to get some tacos. As I'm pouring gas, I look in the back of my tailgate and realized I forgot to throw away at the job site and didn't want to run the risk of it flying out and possibly causing an accident, so naturally I decided to take it back, break the box down, and toss it in a trash can at the bump. Now the box itself wasn't too big, about the size of a shoebox. It was broken down, it was probably about a quarter of that size. As I took the broken down box and placed it in the trash, one of the ladies who worked at the gas station came out furious saying that I wasn't allowed to throw away that box. She claimed that trash was only for smaller items and we weren't allowed to throw away larger things. I was really confused and told her that it really wasn't all that big and I didn't see any issue. She then argued that the cardboard can unravel and fill up the bin and then she would have to replace the bags. I didn't feel like arguing, so I just obliged and took out the box and placed it back in the tailgate. She thanked me for not being so difficult and was about to go into the gas station before I stopped her and asked, "So then, what can I throw away in the trash?" She replied with, "Anything small like water bottles, taco bags, wrappers, and so on." Now cue the malicious compliance. After she said that, I thanked her for letting me know and proceeded to open the back door to my truck, and she got a hold of all the mess. I then proceeded to take out small loads of empty water bottles, taco bags, and so on. It's truly amazing how much trash builds up in these construction trucks. Unless one had been recently cleaned out, I have never seen one with little to no mess. I think I'm pretty good at tossing the stuff out of my truck, but every 2 weeks when I submit my truck for cleaning, it always baffles me with how much mess is in there. I then proceed to stuff the trash can with trash and fill it up. Now, granted, these trash cans already had trash in them and weren't all that big, and I didn't really press down the trash to make it more fit. I then proceeded to move to the next trash can and started filling that one up, all while looking at her with the biggest smirk on my face. She then proceeded to tell me that I cannot throw out that much stuff because it's only meant for small things that I bought from the store. I then proceeded to show her that almost all this stuff can be bought at the store she was working at. She then screams at me saying there is no way I bought everything there, and that I probably got some from other places as well. I then pulled out my company gas card that was from her gas station and told her that this was the only gas station that I'm allowed to use while in this vehicle. So yes, I come to this store a lot since it's right by my job, and most of this, other than the taco wrappers, come from here. She then proceeded to call me a jerk and a few other names as she stormed off into the store. I just sat there with such a huge feeling of accomplishment knowing that I dealt with that Karen accordingly. If she would have just let me throw out the small box, you wouldn't have to come out and replace the trash bags right now and could be sitting inside on your phone. But now you gotta come out and do the job you're getting paid to do. It must suck to actually have to do what you're hired to do, all because you thought some small pieces of cardboard would fill up one little trash can. Little word of advice. Next time, mind your own business. I just remembered this instance of malicious compliance from years ago. I was filling up my old car and the windshield was pretty dirty, so I used a squeegee to clean it up. As one does, sometimes when letting the pump fill the car up, the pump clicked off, indicating that my tank was full. But I wasn't happy with the dirt still on my windscreen, so I hung up the fuel nozzle, then went over the dirty areas of the windshield again. From behind me I heard, "Oh, come on!" Apparently the two gentlemen in the car behind me were a little bit impatient and were unhappy I chose to go over the window that second time. As I was finishing that, one of them said, "Hey, what about the back window?" He was right. The rear window on a CRX is pretty close to horizontal, and it does collect dirt. So I went back to the bucket and started cleaning the rear window as well. Then just to make sure I was extra safe, I cleaned the side windows and then the outside rear view mirrors. I'm pretty sure I could see steam coming from the other car. Not from the radiator, but from the ears of the driver and passenger. In all, they had to wait at least 5 more whole minutes while I made sure all the glass of my car was good enough to see through without too many smudges. If only they hadn't said anything, we'd all have been out of there sooner. We had a volleyball tournament. For reference, I'm a middle blocker, 6 foot, and a vert of 70 centimeters. Game starts and everything goes good. Eventually, the entitled dad's kid gets subbed in because his team wasn't scoring, and apparently, he's a star player. I blocked every hit he went for, and his dad started to get visibly angry, starting to shout at me and stuff as well. After the game ended, we won, and I blocked nearly every shot from this guy. The entitled dad came to me asking what my problem is and stuff like that. I said, "Sorry man, it's my job." And he started laughing and stomped on my shin. It's broken, and I'm currently in hospital writing this story, and the dad should hopefully end up in jail. Also planning on suing for permanent damages. Doctor says I may not be able to play volleyball ever again. And I got a college offer. To be continued. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.